A massive welcome to Trauma and Narcissism Redefined. This is your podcast to help you move from post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic growth. You know, we've all experienced some kind of trauma, every single one of us, because trauma isn't an event or a person. It's actually what happens inside of us and how we feel inside of us about the event, about the person, and that can reinforce how we feel. And I call this the invisible trauma backpack. Things get stuffed in this invisible trauma backpack with how we then feel. Now, I want to talk to you today about something I'm just so excited about. I've mentioned it a number of weeks ago on my podcast, and that's about my brand new book that is out, How to Heal After Narcissistic Abuse. I feel so blessed that this is with Hay House, and Hay House is probably the very first personal development book I ever bought, which was probably about 27 years ago. It's Louise Hay's How to Heal Your Life. And it was when I was down in Sydney, Australia. And just to know now that I have written a book with Hay House. And I'm sharing two things with you in this podcast. One, obviously about the book. And if you have experienced any kind of narcissistic abuse or feel like you're trapped in these cycles all the time, then this is the healing Bible that I know you absolutely need to have. Because not only is the book an educational piece on what exactly narcissistic abuse is and what is narcissism, how does it manifest, what happens, why you end up in these relationships, there's so much information in there. It's literally all you're going to need from an educational perspective about what exactly narcissistic abuse is. But it's actually a practical workbook too. So as you go through the different chapters, I take you on this journey, which is what I call the post-traumatic growth trifecta. So you're looking at the adult self and how to regulate your emotions in the present moment, because let's face it, don't we need that when we're dealing with a narcissist? But there's a reason why we end up in these narcissistic relationships, and very often that takes us back to our childhood. Even if we've had a really great childhood, this is always about interpretation and perception of things. And as children, we're very egocentric. So when things happen around us, we always try and find meaning in it, and it normally is because of us. We see things as a reflection of who we are. So then we go back to the past. We're looking at healing the younger self, corrective experiences, really understanding that we know we're good enough, but we also feel we are good enough, because you can't just talk your way into healing after narcissistic abuse. You have to feel to heal, but you have to know the right things to be able to do. So once we've regulated in the present, started to understand the past and process that, we can then move into the future. You know, I don't just want to help you go back to living a mediocre life. I want you to thrive and flourish. This is where the positive psychology piece comes into the book, stepping into post-traumatic growth. And post-traumatic growth is a term we use in positive psychology that really says that you go on and lead an even better life because of what you have experienced. Now, that might seem like a strange thing to say. And if someone had said that to me in the midst of my healing, wouldn't have believed you. But it can absolutely be true if you know the right things to do. And I see so many people that are stuck trying to heal after narcissistic abuse, doing the wrong things, just trying to talk their way out of it. And again, podcasts are great. This is great for you to start to feel educated and validate you in the moment, but it doesn't work at a nervous system level. You have to know the exact tools to be able to work at a deep nervous system level so you can feel in a safe and titrated way to heal. And this book really allows you to do that. There are so many exercises, interventions, meditations in there, suggestions for you of how you can really start to heal and thrive after narcissistic abuse. So it really is your healing Bible. And again, you know, the link to purchase is in the show notes. And if you do purchase before the 16th of July when it becomes live, I can't believe it, then you will also get access to my healing codependency program, because everybody who ends up in relationships or long-term relationships with narcissists will be codependent. You know, codependents have a really deep lack of self-worth, and everybody who ends up in the relationship with a narcissist will be codependent. So I'm throwing in my 12-step online healing program to move you from self-hate to self-love. Only if you pre-order before the 16th of July though. So make sure you order on the link that is in the show notes below. So it really is your healing Bible. But if you'd have said to me like 10, 11 years ago, I'd be a published author with Hay House, I would not have believed you. You know, I so want you to know that where you are right now does not mean where you have to stay. It really doesn't. But I know for years I kept trying to heal, and the stuff was validating in the moment, talking to people, even having counseling and talking therapy. It felt good in the moment. But the moment I came out of those rooms and someone triggered me, I'd feel that surge of emotions in my nervous system again. And I don't want that to happen to you, because I felt a huge amount of shame around this, thinking, hold on, I'm actually working with people. And I now feel even worse because I feel like what's wrong with me because I can't actually move forward. I was getting to the stage where I was even boring myself with not healing and moving forward. But I didn't realize that actually what I was trying wasn't working at a deep level to help me move forward. So I really want you to understand the dynamics of healing, your nervous system, really how we operate as human beings, because nobody really ever teaches us that. They might teach us about our reproductive system and things like this, but they're not really teaching us about the things we really need to know from a relationship perspective as we get older. Even if they're teaching us what the red flags are, it doesn't matter. If you're a codependent, you are going to be a magnet to these toxic relationships, and you get drawn in, and then we're trauma bonded, and then how do we leave? And all of this is discussed in the book. So you'll get a really good understanding. It's also available on audio. I was in the studio a couple of weeks ago and we booked in 3 days actually to do the audio. And I managed to do it in a day and a half. You can probably tell I'm a bit of a chatterbox anyway, although I had to slow down my speaking when I was doing it on audio. And I could have got somebody else to read it, but I kind of felt like that this was my life's passion and work in this book. I needed to be the one to read it. So I really urge you to get it, and not just to read it, but to action what is in it over and over again. Because genuinely, if you start to do that, you will start to heal and thrive after narcissistic abuse. And I know that because I've put in there all the things that I did. Like I say, you would not have recognized me a number of years ago. And my background was as a podiatrist. Obviously, I lost my family home, and it was only my 2 children that kept me going. So I know how dark the place can be when you're in these narcissistic relationships. Narcissistic abuse is real. All domestic abusers are narcissists, in my opinion. Other than maybe a small select few who perhaps are addicts, who perhaps have had some kind of childhood trauma, but they're still taking ownership of that. But most of them will not take any ownership either. So it's really important for you to know they will not heal. You have experienced narcissistic abuse. What you hold on to is trauma. Trauma is what happens inside of you as a result of what has happened outside of you, the narcissistic abuse. So the narcissistic abuse won't change. The narcissist won't change. But the trauma that you're holding on to because of the narcissistic abuse, you can absolutely work on. But you have to work on these things in a really specific way. And that's everything in the book that I'm going to share with you. So I want you to know, if you're listening to this right now, I want you to know there is hope. There is a light at the end of that tunnel. Please pre-order my book, not only because I know it's going to be the most amazing healing Bible for you, but the more we sell of this book, the louder our voice is going to be. So people actually start taking narcissistic abuse seriously. It's a word, isn't it, that is met with parody, that everybody's ex is a narcissist, and it just diminishes the experience of people like you and I. So my hope is to get this book out there to as many people as possible, to be loud, to talk about this, so we finally start to talk about narcissistic abuse in the mainstream without needing a diagnosis, without needing all of this other elements in it, but to talk about the real abuse that happens at the hands of a narcissist. So make sure you pre-order my book now. The link is in the show notes. And rest assured, if you pre-order before the 16th of July, you'll also get my Healing Codependency program too. So lots of love to you. And also, while I remember, if you haven't registered for my free masterclass on trauma bonding with the narcissist, I'll also pop that in the show notes for you as well. It's totally free. It's on Sunday, the 30th of June at 8 o'clock UK time, 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific. Even if you can't join me live, still register, because I'll make sure that I send you the link as well. So take care, my friends. Remember, you can move from post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic growth in anything if you know the right things to do. And certainly how to heal after narcissistic abuse is going to give you the tools to do so. Lots of love, my friends, and I'll see you on the next episode.